Hi, this is Ken Urban for CSC 125. We're going to talk a bit about the node part of the linked list. I've already put the node class together, so I'm just going to talk about what's there rather than having you watch me type. So I have this class node, which is in node.h, and I have just a few functions that go with it. I have a friend OStream operator, which is the stream insertion operator that we're going to use. I'm mostly going to do that for debugging, so we can see what's going on inside, so I keep track of what's going on. Next, I've also written 3 constructors. One of them takes no arguments, one of them takes just a single string, and one of them takes a string and an address for where the next node in the linked list would be. The no argument constructor is just going to set the next equal to null, which means that there's nothing following it, which means it's the last item in the list. The one argument constructor with just a string is going to store the string into the data, and then again say that there's nothing following it. And then the more general purpose one is going to take a string and the address of where the next one would be in the line. So I'd say, okay, here's a node, here's where the next node is, and I'm going to store that in the data and in where the next one is. I have just a set of mutators and accessors for just getting at the data, right? So I'm just going to store the data in a node that already exists as opposed to when I build one. And then I can get the data or get the next node. Notice that getNext returns a node pointer, right? And setNext gets the node pointer, which is the data I have stored here, right? Which is, I have a string called the data. I've just decided randomly to make this a linked list that has strings for the data. We'll change that at some point later on. Or we could change it if we were going to store integers or floats or something else. We could change that. And then node pointer, my next, is that this is how we're going to keep track of each node. Each node is going to keep the address of the next node along with it. The CPP file, right? All of these functions are piddly little functions which are done inline, except for this stream insertion operator, which is over here in the node CPP file. And basically, I'm printing out just all the debugging information I think I'm going to need. First, I'm printing ampersand n, right? N is the current node, so it's printing the address of where the current one is, right? We would use this address to say, okay, the next one is going to point to us. So that's the address of the current node. I'm calling the get data, so it can show what it contains. And I've put kind of square brackets around in quotes so we can see if there's any embedded spaces or new lines or anything like that. And I'm also saying the next node is at, and then I'm calling the getNext function. Now, the getNext function, as we just saw over here, right, getNext, returns a node pointer. The stream insertion operator doesn't know what to do with a node pointer, but I'm going to cast it to a void pointer because it knows what to do with a void pointer. Void is just sort of a generic pointer that doesn't have anything specifically aimed at. And what it'll do is that if it tries to print out this generic pointer, it'll just give the address of it. So over here in main, I'm just creating a node, right? I have my include node.h, and I'm going to print it out to see what's going on. So when I run this, right, I get the node at this address here contains nothing. The next node is 0, nothing. 0 is actually equal to null. So now I can sort of, let's start building stuff. Let me use one of my other constructors, and I'll put in Hawaii here, or maybe I'll put in go to Hawaii. And then when I print it out, okay, it says the node, pick the same address, contains go to Hawaii, and then the next node is 0. So now I can sort of start building this as a list. Let me put in another node. I'll call it P. We'll call that Bali, and we'll say that after we go to Bali, we'll go to N, right? So after this node, I'm putting in the next node, which is N. And then I'll print them out in order. Let's print P before N, no particular reason. Wow, it looks nicer that way, I think. Okay, so now let's look at it and see what happens. Oh, yeah, it doesn't work unless I put the semicolon in. Now let's make it happen. And look and see. The node at the F0 contains go to Bali. The next node is blah, 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 D8. The node at F8 contains go to 0. So they're kind of hooked up here.
Did you hear about the hire that guy?
Nah, they don't fire him.
Huh? They aren't? Why?
Yes. That's good. Okay, so that when we run it, we can see that this address over here isn't what we expected it to be. The problem in that has to do with the way I built my overloaded stream insertion operator. I passed this as node N. So what's happening out here in main is that this node here is being copied. When I bring it over to here, it's not the same node, so it's making a copy of it and making a copy of the data. I'm going to pass that as a reference. And then over here, making a reference to. So now it's not copying it, it's actually the same node. And now, when I run it, I get my addresses that match. So, back to the beginning here, right, we have this node contains go to Bali, the one at EE0. It says the next node is at EE8. So I go to EE8 and it says go to Hawaii. So we can continue to kind of build our whole list here by just connecting it together. And I can put like a node Q in there, which says go to Chile. Spell it right. And then after I go to Chile, I'm going to put in the address of P, right, which says go to Bali. Right, so I have a node that says here, go to Chile, and says follow that by P. P says go to Bali, follow that by N. N says go to Hawaii, right, and then there's no second parameter, which means it's null, which means it's the end of the list. So when we run this, right, we have D0 says go to Chile, which says next go to D8. D8 says go to Bali, and says next is go to E0. And E0 says go to Hawaii, next node is 0. So this works. Now we also need to maintain or to remember somewhere where that beginning of the list is, where it's here at this address. Thank you.